Welcome to the Center for New Medicine. I am really excited to share part 2 of the prevention and also treatment of cancer. Now, the first lecture that we did was all about the foods and the quality of foods that you want to consume when you're in a preventative format or even in treatment. We talked about fresh, we talked about local, we talked about things that were seasonal, things that don't have additives, preservatives, herbicides, hormones. So our intention is really to take quality food so that we are allowing the best for our immune system, so that the immune system doesn't have to try to clean up a mess that we have 100% control of in terms of our choice of foods. Now, at the same time, we will also want to look at the quality of the lifestyle that we lead, because that's equally as beneficial in regards to changing your diet. And I would tell patients that if you have a hostile lifestyle that you live in, no matter how much organic foods that you have, your immune system will be affected. And so it's very important to look at the whole person. We want to really pay attention that it is truly mind over matter. The mind actually controls the body, and of course the brain is part of the body. And what's really a wonderful thing, and we'll be talking about that this evening, is the brain is very malleable, which means that if we have behaviors or habits that really aren't to our highest purposes, we could actually change them in regards to what we call the neuroplasticity of the brain. We can actually create new neurons to actually create a positive reinforcement in regards to our belief system, rather than continue on with the neurons that are supporting a potential emotion that isn't benefit to us. So we're going to talk all about that this evening, and including the foods, not only the foods that you put in your mouth, but also the pesticides and the herbicides that we use even in our garden when we're trying to have an organic garden. We want to make sure that everything that we use is of natural. Now, one of the things that I tell every patient is that when they wake up in the morning, it's very important to check in with themselves. How do I feel? Did I get a good night rest? And really to give themselves permission to really pay attention to the amount of energy they have in regards to the things that they're going to do. If you get into the mindset of I should, I have to, they expect me, then oftentimes we get in a compromised situation with the amount of energy that we have in regards to being able to adapt. And our intention is putting yourself first. When we put ourselves first, it's not being selfish. In fact, it's actually learning how to be assertive to meet your own needs. One of the things that I tell every patient is that nobody can meet your personal needs better than you. And if you expect everyone from the outside, including your doctors and your husband and your children, to do more than you can, then it makes it very, very difficult for you to heal from the inside out. So one of the things that I want to start talking about first of all is the environment of our mind. Now, I always ask every patient, who influences you the most in your life? And patients will say, oh, my husband or my, sister, so forth. And I say, well, in actuality, the person that influences you the most is you, because you are with yourself 24/7. And if the voice in our head is not beneficial, hello, come on, have a seat. It's not saying positive things in regards to the voice in your head, it's detrimental on an immune system. So it's very important to be consciously aware of your conscious thinking. If it's a critical voice, if it's condemning you and telling you, well, you could have done better, you should do better, then that's going to lower your immunity worse than actual food will. And so again, we have a choice. We have a choice in absolutely everything we do, including how we think. And we were, you guys just walked in right now, but we were talking how malleable the brain is. And before we used to think the brain was just this hardwired computer, you were born with certain neurons, but in actuality, your emotions influence the way your genes express themselves. So that's really a powerful thing. If we can't change our DNA, that's called epigenetics, in regards to the way they express themselves, we have to look in the fact that our emotions literally dictate the way our genes express themselves. So with that in mind, we say that is really a powerful thing to think about. The way I think really can be pro-disease or it can be anti-disease. And so love is something that we're all born with innately. Fear is a learned condition. And remember, fear is something that's in the future, something that may or may not happen, but literally we create a chemistry in regards of that emotion. And if our emotions create our chemistry, then it's pretty important for us to start paying attention to how we are thinking. So if we don't like the way life is turning out, what we do is we look at belief systems that potentially are limiting us in some form or fashion, and we look at the value of those. Now remember, all of you didn't even know your name until someone told you your name, and then all of a sudden you started having a relationship to, I'm Liliana. And then, you get this kind of what I call a invisible box here, and you start to collect information. And so, for example, they might say, oh, Liliana is a good sleeper. She's not a good sleeper. She's good at math. She's not good at math. She's athletic. She's not athletic. So what you begin to do as a child, because you're very susceptible to those people who are influential in your life, is you begin to say, so they say, so I must be. But remember, that's somebody else's point of view. But it influences us so dramatically that we live our entire life through a filter of somebody else's point of view. And so what's really exciting is that if we realize that our brain is really malleable and we can actually change our belief systems based on the choices that we choose to make and also on how we're thinking, then we can literally grow little new neurons and while we're sleeping and have a whole more wiring to be able to utilize for more positive thinking. So it's very, very, very important to understand that even what you don't put into words and you're just thinking, I'm not going to get well. Oh my gosh, what if I die? What's going to happen to my children? Oh, look at my grandchildren. I'm not going to see them get married. What you're doing is you're projecting already being gone. Well, that will lower your immunity faster than anything, because what happens is you're in the future. You're no longer in the present anymore, enjoying your grandchildren, enjoying the love that surrounds you so that it can be of a nurturing nature. So fear is a false illusion that appears real. And, and I said this on the first lecture I did, is that fear is really a misguided use of faith. Because we're in fear, we fear that we can't get well, and if we have that fear, maybe the doctors can't get us well, and maybe God can't get us well. And so how easy is it to go from that sense of fear to feeling helpless to feeling hopeless, which is very much undermining your immune system. And so neurogenesis is being able to create new little neurons while you are sleeping between 10 and 2 o'clock in the morning to create new pathways for more positive affirmation and to get rid of those thought patterns that have no benefit, that are not to our highest interest. So truly, it's very, very important to be paying attention. What is my conscious mind focusing on? Now remember, whatever you put your attention on is going to expand, positive or negative. Your brain doesn't really know the difference. All it understands is the emotional side to it. And so what I like to tell everybody to do is take a mental and emotional inventory. You check in with yourself. How am I feeling today? Some people will say, I woke up and I just feel blue. I don't know why. I shouldn't feel blue. There's nothing for me to be sad about right now. Things are going pretty well, but my chemistry just I feel sad. And so I tell them every emotion is absolutely important because it gives you an inclination of your conscious thinking. And so if it's an emotion that doesn't have any benefit for me, I need to look at the reality of it. Sadness is yesterday's emotion. It's something that happened yesterday. Well, if I cannot accept it, I will continue to drag it forward for many, many years to come. I have many patients when we're doing emotional work, they'll talk about things that happened 20 years ago. And they can cry, they can bring up the very same emotion that they had 20 years ago because they didn't process it in a healthy way. So when we have emotions, we don't need to compartmentalize them. What we need to do is take a good look and say, how real are you? How valuable are you in regards of where I need to go next? So again, what I tell each patient is that each emotion is absolutely beneficial, even anger. Because what does anger tell you? It tells you, stop right there, because sometimes when we're angry, we say things we shouldn't say, and later we regret. So if we start to get that emotion of anger that starts welling up, and just we all know what that feels like. Our heart starts to go, we even sweat, our blood is literally boiling. So when you get to that, you say, stop, something has got to change. But that something that has to change potentially is just your perception of what the situation is. And so if I take a moment and I take a few deep breaths, and instead of engaging in a knee-jerk reaction to this, I say to myself, what is making me angry at this very moment right now? And 99% of the time, it is an emotional, what I call an emotional injury that we have not healed in a healthy way. And so it's like somebody putting salt on your wound. So don't kill the messenger when somebody makes you mad. Look at it as an opportunity for healing. When you're in a spiritual relationship, you have a partner that is truly unconditionally loving you and really is there to support you in healing, then you can be vulnerable. You can say to them, what I feel is this. And I tell patients to reduce it down to one emotion. If I'm angry, I sit with it and I say, what is it that I feel? Well, I'm angry because they triggered something in me, and really what it is, that what I felt after I sat with anger was I felt hopeless. Now, if I were to reintroduce this conversation again in a counseling session, and I said to their partner, did you mean for her to feel hopeless? 99.9%, they'd say, no, I did not. And what's really interesting, if you are vulnerable enough to come from your heart, which is a state of vulnerability, you can bring across an emotion to someone that doesn't put them in a contradictory mindset that you are accusing them of something. And that's an immediate fight. If I say, the other day when we got together, you saw that I got a little bit upset. Well, when I sat with it, what I really felt was hopelessness. Now, 9 times out of 10, that person's going to say, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to make you feel hopeless. What I meant to make you feel was X, Y, and Z. So what that does is it offers you an opportunity to clear up a potential misunderstanding that can grow and that can seed and create weakness in your tissues. Remember, all emotions that we haven't processed in a healthy way can become ghost emotions and create weakness in our tissues. So what's beautiful is with this neuroplasticity and neurogenesis, we can rewire our brain and really create a mindset of health and a sense of longevity, because we are loving ourselves that much to really take inventory of what's going on in the conscious mind. Very, very important. Another thing that's very important is not only to have organic foods, but also the environment that you live in. If you're using toxic chemicals to laundry soap and your lipstick and your makeup, it's dermal. It's going to go straight into your bloodstream. And so really we need to go green. Everything needs to be green in terms of not only environmental friendly, but also environmental internally friendly. And so often, it's the Ajax and the things that get everything really clean, but it's toxic to you. And so I tell patients you need to really go green with your house as much as possible, because we are taking in about 140,000 chemicals. There's 140,000 additives and chemicals that are allowed in our food supply. And just even in our water. So it's very important in regards to the quality of water that we're consuming, that obviously most everyone knows we do not want to drink tap water, but having some sort of a filtration system that at least gets out the contaminants and the heavy metals and the chlorine. So that means on your shower, so oftentimes it's very expensive to have a full filtration system to their whole house. So I tell patients, even in your bath water, where you are soaking and it's hot and your pores are open, you can get the chlorine and additives into your body. And so again, I like using different agents like Epsom salt and clays in my bath, and that helps to support detoxification as well. But again, I would encourage all of you to have what's called a little bath ball that you can put into your water. It's got a charcoal filter on it, so that can also clean up some of the chlorine especially, and then also onto the shower heads. And so anywhere where you are actually going to be exposed dermally or internally, you want to have that water filtered. Very important. You also don't want to drink out of plastic water bottles because of the phthalates in there, which are hormonal disruptors. And so often we are a plastic society. Everything is in plastic. We get our food from the grocery stores wrapped in plastic. And so what I tell patients is, especially water, because it's a molecular structure where things can leach into it. And so you know that all plastic bottles have been on some dock somewhere getting heated. And okay, you might get it nice and cold because it's coming out of a refrigerator, but you don't know what the heat exposure. So I tell patients, please, no plastic at all, no microwaving, because microwaving changes the molecular structure of the food so that the immune system really doesn't recognize it anymore and will attack it like it would attack any other virus. So why would we take our immune system from the front line of it fighting other opportunistic or rogue organisms and have to deal with going and clean up what we are choosing to put into our body? And so it's really important to start paying attention to our surroundings in regards to also cleaning your vegetables with something that helps to get some of the pesticides. I love using grapeseed extract. I like it because it gets rid of parasites and so critters. So I'll take like 20 drops of grapeseed extract in a big bowl of water, and literally I wash everything in it, from my vegetables, and I even put my meats in there, my fish, just to kill any kind of critters that might have hitchhiked on my food. And people think that, you know, we don't have, you know, we are not a third world country, we don't have parasites, but honestly, parasites have no boundaries, and we get food from other countries and vegetables and organics, and we do have parasites on these foods, and every body has toxins, including parasites and virus and bacteria and heavy metals. So one of the things we want to do is also clean our environment, which is the terrain. And so it's very important to think about detoxification. And so if we kind of look at seasonal detoxification, that makes it really easy, because we kind of say, okay, you know, springtime, it's good that it's warmer, we can start having more salads, things that are lighter, and so parasite cleansing would be good. And then we do gallbladder liver flushes, and we do even the diet that we're following in a ketogenic mindset is a very much a candida protocol, because we don't have a lot of high sugars that these organisms thrive off of. So it's really important, not only the environment you live in, new carpets and the gas, fumes that come off these can be very, very toxic to patients that have a already compromised immune system. The paint that they paint on their walls, as I said before, the makeup, the hair dye, things of that nature all matter. One of the things that probably was the last thing that I turned green was my hair dye, right? Because we can be pretty vain about staying young, and of course dark hair makes you look a lot younger oftentimes. And so when I realized that organic products that didn't have a lot of these parabens and didn't have the alcohol and all of these toxic substances were just as good in regards to the way they dyed my hair, it was great, because now everything that I have, including my makeup and the things that I use for my hair, are all organic and free of all of these contaminants, which is very important. Now, the other thing that we want to talk about also is how you cook your food. One of the things we talked about in the last section was that we didn't want to overheat our foods, because we don't want to oxidize those healthy fats. And so since the keto adaptive lifestyle is going to be higher in fat, I tell my patients in the cooking of the pots and pans that you use, I personally like medical grade still, the 316, and it's a medical grade with also a titanium in it, and they don't have any soldering, so there is no oxidative opportunities there. It holds 93% of your nutrients in there. I like using the Salad Master. I've had it for over 20 years. There are a couple of, one in particular knockoff of that company. They're, the price is a bit different, but I love these pans because I know that I'm not going to leach anything. Like when I use my what do you call it, the green pans. You know, someone bought me a green pan. Oh, how about these green pans? They're just fantastic. And of course, who doesn't love it when their eggs don't stick to your stainless steel pans, all right? It's like, oh gosh, half of the egg is stuck on there. And so these green pans, when I did the research on them, they don't have the Teflon and the toxicity, which we don't want to use at all. But it was inconclusive in regards whether they were detrimental or not. And so the evidence isn't out on them, and they've just been used for a short period of time, so we don't know for sure. So when people are under compromised situations, I said, let's go with what we do know for sure. And so I do like the medical grade still much better, because not only are they medical grade still, which means they heat really well all the way around, but also too is they have a little lid, a little flapping, so they become waterless. So as soon as it gets to 180 degrees, they start flapping so that you can turn them down to keep the high nutrient density in there. So I really, I like those a lot. I use Salad Master, but of course there are other things that you can use. They are pricey, but they're well worth it. I've had mine for 20 years, so I think I'll be able to pass them down to my daughter. Now, cast iron. And I like using cast iron, but I'm very careful on the acidity. Like, I won't do tomatoes and things that are high acidity because it will pick up the elemental iron in there. Now, one thing about cancer is that iron is not good. High levels of iron, cancer can feed off of that. And so if you've got a super well-seasoned pan that's old, the layer is going to be a lot thinner, then I say that would be okay to use. But again, don't use a lot of acidity, making tomato sauces in it. That would not be a good idea because it will pull. Now, when patients are still menstruating and they have their period every month, that's a way of detoxifying too. And so they can, again, release some of this excess iron. But if patients already have a high iron level load, I tell them not to use cast iron pans, okay? And so our intention is looking at absolutely everything, from the products that we bring into our house so that they become green, so they're not toxic, not to our smell, to our touch, because they are dermal, from new carpet that we're going to have, to the paint that we put on our walls. So all of it matters. And so again, it's not to overemphasize the fact that, oh my gosh, I have to change absolutely everything in my life. No, but we do it little by little, and we don't add new things that potentially can cause a problem for us, okay? Now, another thing that I find really important is exercise. Now, because cancer thrives in a low oxygen state, and a lot of times patients don't have a whole lot of energy for exercise. Say, well, what do you do for exercise? And they say, well, I'm not really doing a whole lot right now. I don't have a whole lot of energy. I'm in pain. And so I say, rather than doing nothing, what can you do? Even as simple as sitting on an exercise ball. I like to use those exercise balls. I like putting them in a corner so that your kind of back is up against them, so they're not going to move around. And just really sitting on them and just bouncing up and down and just stimulating the lymphatic system. So if I feel that I'm not stable, to be on a rebounder, which is the mini trampolines. And now the thing about mini trampolines, people say, oh yeah, I got hurt on them. And I'm like, wow, how are you jumping? They were like, I was jumping. Well, these trampolines aren't like the ones that we would use for fun with our kids outside that are really kind of very flexible. They're stiff. And so when you use these rebounders, you want to keep your knees bent slightly, about hip width apart, and you want to be pressing down so that it's in the quadriceps. Your lymphatic system is a one-way valve. So it's not like your heart where you've got this venous pulling back and forth. So it's only stimulated through up-down motion. And we don't walk around hopping. So if we jump rope, that's fantastic, but that takes a lot of energy, and also it takes some talent. And so the rebounder is a perfect solution for that if you're stable enough and don't feel that you have an issue with stability. If you do, then I say the ball is fantastic and just bouncing up and down. I like to do it a minimum of 12 minutes. But again, if you don't have the energy to do that, you do 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes there, so that you're stimulating your lymphs throughout the day. Your lymph system has about 3 times the amount of water, and so it's really dependent on the water content foods that you're consuming and on the water that you take in. And so since our colon is what absorbs the water, if we don't have enough water that we're taking in, then we can have constipation issues. And if you have constipation issues, it's like the sewage pipes backing up. And unfortunately, the lymph system does have many lymph nodes to the gastrointestinal area. So that means whatever we can't get out filters out into our blood again. So it's very important as far as hygiene to make sure that you're having regular bowel function. And sometimes people think regular is like every other day or every 3 days because that's the norm for them. And so I say, well, you've had 3 meals plus oftentimes, so how can one bowel movement every 2 days be what we would consider healthy? It's not. Really, one bowel movement a day is considered sluggish. So we'd kind of just say, 1.5 to 2 a day would be what we would consider accurate. A lot of times on the ketogenic diet, because you take the grains out and a lot of the high fiber food, people will have more experience of constipation. And so this is why it's important to add fiber in. So whether we're using things like chia seed or psyllium husk in our shakes, I think that's really important. And also, too, a lot of the vegetables are going to be very high fiber as well. That's why I say 50% raw in a salad, 50% cooked, and then that way you're getting a balance of both of them. But again, I tell patients, if you haven't gone to the bathroom in a day or so, then it's important to use some agent to support that. We use a lot of cleansing for the GI system. We do, the enemas in regards to a lot of therapeutic different types of enemas. And so they're very helpful. Most of our patients do it on a regular basis. They feel that it lowers their pain, and also they feel a lot better. And myself, I like to do it just for prevention. And so if I'm doing it as a treatment protocol, why wouldn't I do it for prevention? And so I try to do some of that cleansing at least once or twice a week, just to kind of keep the pipes clean. And that's what I kind of say. If you don't clean your house, things start to build up, and then what happens? All kinds of critters. So if we're kind of thinking hygiene all the time, we brush our teeth, we wash our hair behind our ears, but nobody really taught us how to internally cleanse. And so, again, that is the utmost importance, especially when you're in a compromised immune system. And so what I tell patients is what energy you have, you say, what can I do with it today? If I don't have the energy to exercise, I can sit on my ball and I can, watch TV, or I can listen to some good music and I can bounce and shake to stimulate my lymphatic system. And if even that's difficult, then there's what's called a chi machine. And you can get these on eBay or on the internet, but it's, excuse me, it's just a device that you put your ankles in, and you lie down on the ground and it just kind of shakes you. But again, it's stimulating the lymph system, which is really important because your lymph system is your internal shower, and that is very important. Now, exercise, people will say to themselves, well, I walk, and I tell patients, it's great to walk, but it's not going to create any workload on you in regards to changing the dynamic of your body. And so with the energy that you do have, I really encourage patients when they do have good energy to do weights training. Weights training at least holds on to lean muscle mass, because one of the things that we do know is under a compromised immune system, you're running a little bit higher in cortisol because you're stressed, and the body will break down lean muscle tissue because you're in a stress modality. So again, the quadriceps, your gluteus maximus, your hamstrings, the larger muscle groups are the muscles that you want to focus on in regards of increasing your metabolism. Remember, the more muscle you have, the higher metabolic burn you'll have, which means burning calories more effectively while you sleep. We talked about in the first lecture that between 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning is your repair cycle. And so that's when I'm burning the most fat for fuel. And this is why I tell all patients not to eat anything past 7 o'clock at night, so that you have a good 3 to 4 hour window before you go to bed where insulin is no longer in your bloodstream from your last meal, and that you can use fat for fuel at the appropriate time where you will use it the most to repair and to clear the amyloids out of the brain, to allow yourself to create more little neurons so that you can have all this baby new wiring for new happy thoughts in the morning. Now, we talked about the pans, but also we also want to make sure that we are not overcooking our food so we can keep the nutrition in there. And so again, lots of patients, they do raw diets and find they get bloaty and gassy and it doesn't settle well with them. And oftentimes we need to cook foods just to break the cell wall, but that doesn't mean making them mushy. So I say as soon as you can pierce a vegetable with your fork, it's ready. And you want to have it a little bit on the crunchy side so it retains the nutrients. I don't fry any foods at all because they become more oxidized fats, and since your diet's already going to be a higher in fat, anything that oxidizes is going to use up your antioxidants. And we want your antioxidants to quench free radicals because of the immunity issue. So we don't want to waste our wonderful antioxidants on oxidized fats or foods. So no frying of the foods is very important. And I do fried chicken, but I do it in the oven. And I do it gluten-free, and I do it very, very low carbohydrates. But again, I'm not exposing the protein to high heat. If you want to saute, you want to bake, you want to broil, perfect. You want to poach. Those are all, stewing is fantastic. So that cooking method is very, very good. Now, does that mean that you can never have fried food the rest of your life? I tell patients it's not the once in a while thing that gets you. If you're out and everybody's having, hamburgers and French fries, and you're doing your lettuce wrap, and if this kind of thing. One French fry is one carb. All right. So if you have 4 or 5, it's not going to make or break you because it's something that you do once in a while. And people always ask me, well, how about alcohol? And I tell them, well, basically it's a sugar with no fiber in it, so it's like putting a hypodermic needle in your arm. Well, I don't know if that's good. I don't think so. So if you do it occasionally, you're at a social event and you are celebrating something, why not? Every once in a while is okay, but if all of a sudden, it starts to become a habit where every day we have a glass of wine, and then a glass of wine turns into a glass and a half, and then 2 glasses, then we really are not supporting your immune system and the liver. So I tell patients occasionally it's absolutely okay, but at the same time, we always want to say, what benefit does this have in my life? And that's how you kind of want to live your life. I say if we live our life through the immune system, so if my immune system had eyes, and I said, I want to look out your eyes and tell me, is this to my highest interest? I guarantee you would make much better choices, even with the people that are in our life. If we are drained and we're in a toxic relationship and it's causing us all kinds of stress, it's going to really lower your immunity. And so this is where I tell patients, sometimes you can't change your environment. Sometimes you can't change your partner. And so what you need to do is change the perspective of how you see that situation. And I always say, if we're looking for a blemish, I'll guarantee you will find it. But if I wake up with the mindset, I want to see the very best in whoever it is that I have a relationship with, so I'm not looking for those things, and I will guarantee your life will be much, much better. At the same time, it's really important to create boundaries. And so again, if something doesn't feel right, it isn't right. Listen to your gut. So often if we get into our mind in regards to I should, I have to, they expect me, I'm responsible, then you're acting out of guilt. And if you're not acting out of joy, then you're going to lower your immunity. Remember, if I am in gratitude, I can go into joy. If I can go into joy, I can go into that most highest vibrational frequency that is most healing, which is love. Remember, we are hardwired for love. It's our basic DNA on a emotional level. Fear is it's a learned behavior. All of these things like anxiety and fear and anger, they are learned behaviors. And so if we just kind of begin to really assess, how real is what I'm feeling, is it in front of me right here, right now, then I can make a judgment in regards to how do I want to handle this? How is it going to be to my best interest to perceive this in a different way? So emotions are very important. Our environment is important. The food that we choose to have, the seasonal, the fresh foods, go to your farmer's market. Gluten-free is absolutely essential because of the genetic modification that our gut does not recognize. In the first lecture, I said there used to be, in terms of celiac, 1 in 625, now there's 1 in 125. I said, I think Crohn's last time, but I want to correct myself. It's celiac. And so that's terrible. 1 in 125. And so again, we're seeing such a rise in inflammation because of the poor quality of food that we have in this country. We are at such a disadvantage. I mean, honestly, Europe, China, Russia, Mexico, they all have banned GMO. What is wrong with us? So honestly, we have to take matters in our own hands, and we have to say if it's genetically modified, if it is irradiated, if it's fortified, and if it's adulterated, our body does not know what to do with it. And so again, it makes it easy for us to recognize what it is that's going to be to our highest interest when we truly know what isn't to our highest interest. Another thing that is really important to understand is that you are not perfect and I am not perfect. And there will be times where, you know, you will be on your game, but if you recognize that this is just one moment in time, then I can look at how did I feel when I engaged in that. Whether it was eating something that I know probably wasn't on my yes list, did I feel bloated, did I feel gassy, did I feel sleepy, then that wasn't a good response. If I'm around people and afterwards I feel like I'm drained and I need to take a nap and I've got a headache because the conversation wasn't uplifting, then again, it's not to be rude and to say, look, you know, you guys are toxic, I'm not going to hang out with you anymore, but it is to direct the conversation differently. And instead of engaging, you know, in more drama, is to be quiet and listen to what they have to say, but then turn it around and say things to them, you know, gosh, listen, I really hear what you're saying, and, you know, gosh, you know, blah, 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 in a positive way, and then turn it and say, well, you know, have you thought about X, Y, and Z? Or isn't it an amazing day today? It's so beautiful outside of you. And so again, you can switch people around and not engage with them. But again, you don't want to be rude and say, you know, that's a toxic conversation, I'm not going to engage in that. You just don't want to contribute to it, and you want to direct it in a different manner so that you can influence your environment in a positive way, which is really, really important. Now, one of the things in regards to not being perfect is that we also want to have the mindset that you are your own personal experiment. Okay? There is not a one blueprint fit all. So it's really important for, again, you to be present in how you feel and the emotions that you feel behind it. If it's of positive nature, then great, you embrace it. But if I don't lean towards something in this way, then that means it probably doesn't have benefit to me. If I kind of slightly pull away, that means I'm resisting it some way, and my intuition is saying, not now. This isn't a good idea. And so even a germ in a tea tree dish, if you put a healthy cell and a toxic cell, the healthy cell, and you put them side by side, the healthy cell will move as far away as it can from the toxic substance. So cellular intelligence. And so again, we want to know that every single cell in your body has an intelligence. When you speak, it hears you. It picks up your emotional state of existence. And this is why people are always craving, you know, what we would consider playful foods or filler foods like chips and crackers and chocolate and ice cream and cheeses, is because their brain is detecting an emotional instability. Now, really understand that our emotions are so important, because if you are not capable of emotionally being stable enough to run from the predator, you will get eaten. So my brain's always detecting what's her energy level, what's her mood, and so it gives you that mindset of thinking that you need something to enhance it. Well, go get, for example, when you're under a lot of stress and your adrenals are overworking, your body's going to want salt. And so what do people do? They want crunchy things. They're mad. They want to chew down on it, and they want the salt because the adrenals have been overworking. So rather than going for your chips and your crackers and things of that nature, I just say put a little couple of drops of some Himalayan rock salt or some Celtic salt or Tibetan salt and a little bit of lemon water and drink that. And all of a sudden your craving for salty, crunchy food will completely go away. If I'm wanting sugar foods, I guarantee you if you take lemon water and drink it, sour is the opposite of sweet. It'll cut your sweet. And this is why a lot of times what I like to do too is I just like to take a little bit of apple cider vinegar in some water, and I like to drink that, and not only does it help for establishing good hydrochloric acid in my gut, but it also makes me not want to have sweet things. So a lot of times for a drink, I will put something like a little bit of ginger, a little bit of lemon, a little bit of apple cider vinegar in there, and just make a nice drink and have that, and it's very refreshing, but it really kind of cuts that mindset of wanting to have something that is of sweet nature. So remember, your cravings are based on your emotional need, and we don't want to use foods as a drug of choice, which so often we do. So your brain is not trying to sabotage you. It's trying to balance out your moods. And so what you say is, why am I, if I'm reaching for something that I know is a mood-enhancing food, then I might say, somehow I haven't met my personal needs. Maybe what I need is a massage. Maybe what I need is a hot bath. Maybe what I just need is to be quiet. You give yourself permission to do that. So oftentimes, especially people who have an A personality or A blood type, they've got this list going in their brain all the time. What's next? What's next? What's next? Even when they're at home and they've done it all, they feel like they need to do more. They can't relax. Well, if I can't relax, my sympathetic nervous system is on overdrive, and that will lower my immunity. So we need to give ourselves permission to do absolutely nothing. And one of the things that I really love to do also is I like to do what I call moving meditation. So that means something like gardening. I mean, I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm looking at the worms that are coming in and out of the soil that I'm tilling. I'm looking at the plants. I'm, cutting dead things. I'm immersed in something that has to do with connecting myself back to Mother Nature and Earth. To me, that's a moving meditation. If I'm doing Tai Chi or I'm doing yoga, that's another moving meditation. It's wonderful. But again, meditation, literally in a 1 week's time, Harvard did a study that in 1 week's literally increased your telomere length. And that's the longevity of your life. And so again, trying to even be in silence. And I tell patients, they say, oh, it's really hard for me to be in silence. And I start to meditate and all these thoughts come in. And I say, okay, well, if you have a mind that's kind of chattering to you all the time, then you want to do meditations that are commentary. Those are meditations that, are saying, okay, they're verbal. They start saying, okay, now take a deep breath, and I want you to relax, and I want you to visualize. So I like those. I need those because I have a very busy mind. So if I'm listening to beautiful melodic music, pretty soon I'm thinking about something else, and an intrusive thought comes in. So when intrusive thoughts come in, I don't say, oh, I'm not going to think about that. I say literally, oh, you're an intrusive thought. Well, I see you, but I don't need to think about you right now. I will do it later. So again, I always give the analogy, if you, and I got this analogy when I was working, doing my brain op, and I said, imagine that life is this beautiful stream, okay? And you've got a canoe, and you've got oars. And so now you can do one of two things. You can try to work as hard as you can to get to your destination and maybe not even see the surroundings and the beauty of life. Or you can just kind of relax and let the river guide you and be noticing, oh, it's beautiful, the birds, fantastic. And then you use your oars just as a means to push yourself from things that block your path. So if I have an intrusive thought, I say, oh, if I'm in my canoe, you're an intrusive thought. I'm just going to push you right out of my mind for now. And then I continue. So in meditation, I do that. I just want to do my breathing. I want to focus. If a thought comes in that isn't of benefit to me, then I just imagine I'm in my boat, and I take my oar and I push it away. And then I continue down my river. And here comes another thought. I don't say, oh, no, I can't think about it. I just gently push it away. And so again, just remember, your mind is not trying to play tricks on you. But at the same time, mind over matter. Your mind, which is your thoughts, control your chemistry, which controls your biology, which can control the way your genes express themselves. That's powerful, just by the way I think. Do you have any questions at all on this subject that we're talking about right now? Okay, great. So I want to thank you guys for coming, and for all of you out there that are watching live. We're going to do these on a monthly basis. Our intention is to educate you so that it makes it easier for you to make better choices. And that's what life is all about, is about choice. I have a choice to be happy, or I have a choice to be sad. I have a choice to eat this food, or I have a choice to eat that. But remember, if something is occupying space in my hand, I can't take something else until I let that something go. And if that's something that is in my hand blocking me from superior health or happiness or joy, I have to be willing to put it down and to be creative and say, allow God, the universe, to bring me something else. Remember, nature hates a void. So if I have something I want to take out, I put something positive that I want to bring in. Very, very important. So as we summarize this whole two-part series here, is that we want to eat according to our primal blueprint. What is our stats? What is our condition? Metabolically, what do I do best with? How many carbohydrates can I have? How much protein should I have? Remember, a keto adaptive diet is not a paleo diet. It's not having a ton of protein in your diet. It's having a moderate amount of protein in the diet. Okay? And so that could be anywhere for a woman 2 to 3 ounces. For a man, it could be 4 to 5 ounces. And so again, our intention is to try to create chemistry so that we don't crave. If I have a balanced chemistry, you'll never have another craving in your life. Now you'll have a sightseeing craving. That means I look at a dessert and I go, oh my gosh, that looks so good, I want to eat that. But I'm not sitting here going, oh gosh, I'd really like to have a chocolate sundae, or I want popcorn. And I know, even for myself, when I have been in the past not stable blood sugar, I'll crave. It'll be, in the evening time, I'll think, I'd really like to have some popcorn, or I'd really like to have this. But when my blood sugar is stable and I have created a balanced chemistry, there will be no cravings at all. It will just be, I'm hungry, I eat, I'm full. 4 or 5 hours later, my hypothalamus gets a signal, I'm hungry, I eat, I'm full. So again, we do not want to graze. We want to think 4 to 5 hours between our meals so that we can use fats to burn for fuel to create ketone proteins that can fuel our brain, that can fuel our metabolism, but doesn't fuel cancer in terms of fermenting it and utilizing it as fuel. You need to drink half of your body weight in good quality water. Now, if you're eating a lot of foods that are water content oriented, like salads and vegetables, you're going to get a lot of water out of that. And if you're going to have teas, and if you're going to have teas and things of that nature, those are also water as well. So exercise is important. The environment that you live in, the products that you put on your body, the way you think. So just remember, tonight when you are sleeping, you have an opportunity to create a neurogenesis, new little neurons that are going to be born for new, happy, positive, immune boosting thoughts. Have a good night.